Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back to MTN Outdoors. Winter recreation season is starting to heat up. Well, maybe we should say it's starting to get really cold. You know what I mean, whether it's ice fishing, skiing, or skating, get ready for some Montana winter adventures. Let's kick off this episode with my coworker at MTN, morning anchor in Helena, Mr. Ryan Berg. I'm your host, Keith Grevins.
Well, there is so much to ice fishing, from the sport to getting out in the outdoors during the winter. But one thing about the activity that's the big catch is the community.
Well, that's why I'm not catching them. Is this because I can't catch them because...
I'll try that.
This is Jonathan and Emily Miller, a couple in Montana that love every aspect of fishing. Jonathan competes in tournaments with his best friend Todd Smitham. Him and Emily also run their own YouTube channel called Rebel Against the Indoors, where he found his online community helping each other improve in the sport.
You get a lot of satisfaction in seeing people or seeing some comments of like, hey, this actually helped. I appreciate you doing this. And that is ultimately why I like to do it.
But the Millers weren't always out on the ice. When they started fishing, it was mainly in the warmer months. But once they were introduced to the ice fishing community 8 years ago, they loved that they could enjoy a sport year-round and found a winter activity they could do together.
Fishing's one that I think, you can do it as a whole family. You know, you can give a kid a rod. You know, you can give your grandma a rod, grandpa a rod. You can sit out and just spend time together, but then also have an activity to do at the same time.
Jonathan originally found the interest of ice fishing when he walked up to a random fisherman out on the ice interested in getting into the sport.
I'd say my first real introduction to it was when I definitely met my best friend, Todd. He's the one right over there, which that's kind of the fun thing about it is because being able to see people on the ice close together, fishing together, I mean, it's pretty appeasing. It's
an activity the Millers enjoy and say that it's a community willing to help others, where veterans out on the ice welcome and help newcomers wanting to join.
I have seen very few people not help somebody. The few times I have seen it on the shoreline, they have helped them. And it anywhere from refining their technique to choosing the right bait.
At the Causeway, Ryan Berg, MTN News.
So it allows every member of your team or your crew going out to be able to check that beacon.
Beacons, also known as transceivers, are essential tools for backcountry enthusiasts during rescue situations.
In a timely manner, there's no other way to be able to locate someone if they were buried into an avalanche.
Flathead Nordic Ski Patrol Director Trevor Howard says beacons are constantly sending out signals, allowing others to pinpoint your exact location if buried in an avalanche.
People who are caught in avalanches can be buried partially above the surface, just below the surface, or several meters below the surface. So to be able to locate someone when it is an absolute chaos scene and it just looks like rubble all over the place, it's the best piece.
Howard says making sure your beacon is still functional is a must before venturing into the backcountry. That's why Flathead Nordic Ski Patrol have set up beacon checkers at 9 different locations across the Flathead region.
And part of it is their electronic equipment, and they have the propensity to fail. So, testing them every time you go out.
The beacon checkers are made possible thanks to community fundraising. They are located at Whitefish Mountain Resort, Glacier National Park, and various backcountry access points in northwest Montana.
They're about $1,500 each. The simple beacon checker unit costs about $500. It comes with a solar panel. We use a deep cycle battery that charges that system and allows them to run all winter long.
Howard says the goal is to add additional beacon checkers in the years to come.
Make sure that you have them on and are using them every time.
In Whitefish, Sean Wells, MTN News.
One of the best parts of winter in Montana is getting out and playing some ice sports. And thanks to Bozeman Parks and Rec, you can do it for free.
Right now I'm doing some skating, just some good old hockey, passing the puck around, just for fun.
Dorothy Burns moved to Montana from the Midwest more than 20 years ago and says her motivation was the winter sports opportunities.
Watching the temperatures drop in the recent days. In the last couple of weeks, we finally got winter, and it just gets everybody stoked because that's why we're here.
Bozeman Park's Assistant Superintendent Doug Eisenman says warm temperatures earlier in the season kept them from opening local ice rinks sooner.
We were way behind because we didn't have snow or cold temperatures until into the first part of January. Ideally, we would like to have them open by Christmas break for the kids, but we haven't been able to do that for quite a few years.
Building ice rinks starts with cold weather to make the ground hard with frost. Then comes the needed snowpack,
Which we didn't have much of this year until lately. So then we pack the snow in, roll it with a roller behind a four-wheeler, and then we're able to start soaking the rinks.
I caught some city workers spraying down Beal Park, which isn't quite ready yet, but rinks like Bogart are up and running.
What I like about this one is that it's in old school Bozeman, it's outdoors, good ice, and easy to get to.
Dorothy says she appreciates having the space for free recreational fun, especially during the winter months.
As we, find ourselves in these cold temperatures, we can stay isolated and indoors, and that's never good to be stagnant for too long.
Though the rink looks empty now, Dorothy says they're usually buzzing with activity.
Just people having fun. And I think that's what's most important, is that these rinks really bring people together.
In Bozeman, Kevin Van, MTN News.
It's cold outside, even for the fur-covered animals. They'll be struggling too. MTN Outdoors will be right back with more on that.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. You're not the only one that's preparing for extreme cold weather, and I don't mean just your friends and neighbors. Animals, they can struggle too, even the big ones. Montana's specialty. People new to Montana do need some help though. Let's see what coping with below freezing temps can mean in the Treasure State.
Sub-zero temperatures, wind, and deep snow. Winter in Montana. As you can see, this season is challenging for Montana's wildlife. But there are some simple things we can do to help them make it through till spring.
It does not involve feeding wildlife. Wildlife have the tools they need to survive on their own as long as we give them space.
There's nothing quite like seeing a herd of deer or elk moving across a field. It's a great photo op. However, if you're causing them to move by being where you are, then you're too close, and they will suffer the consequences.
This time of year, they're not putting on any extra weight. They're losing weight all throughout the winter, and that's energy that they have built up during the summer, which now they are spending it. And if we're causing them to have to spend more of that energy unnecessarily, it can be detrimental to wildlife. So it's important that we give them space.
That space equally important if you recreate with a pet. Dogs like to chase animals. This time of year, that can be deadly for either.
If there are any concerns or any possibility that they're going to chase wildlife, it's important to keep the pet at your side, even with a leash. Number one, for the pet's safety, and number two, to reduce the stress on wildlife.
High mountain snows and good snow down low means our chance of seeing wildlife this time of year is great. As Jacobson notes, it's great to see wildlife as long as we're seeing them from a non-invasive distance this time of year. Near Gallatin Gateway, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Mountain lions are thriving once again in Montana, and one woman had an up-close encounter earlier this month, leaving her grateful she was indoors.
I thought surely when it sees me, it'll turn around, but it didn't. It kept going.
Eileen Ewan got the surprise of a lifetime when this was outside her kitchen window.
It was very unexpected.
The glowing eyes of a mountain lion looking right back at her.
The next morning we looked around and there were tracks at both of the doors that had stopped and sniffed.
Living in the East Boulder area south of Big Timber, Ewan has seen mountain lion activity before.
We had one kill a deer and drag it into one of our barns.
But has never seen the animal behind the kills.
It was pretty exciting, especially since it just stood there and looked at the camera.
Mountain lions are They occupy huge landscapes, they travel a lot, they have large home ranges.
According to Brian Wakeling with Fish, Wildlife and Parks, tracking the animal's population is complex.
1998 was probably about our low point. We saw an increase in that population since that time till probably about 2012, and probably since that time it's probably been at a stable to slightly increasing level.
But in 2023, an FWP commission voted to start reducing the population.
It was as low as 10%, in some areas it's 40%.
He believes there has been some amount of reduction, but as the animal occupies such huge landscapes, it may not be uncommon to see one in northwest or west central Montana.
We have landscaping that's attractive to a lot of prey species. When we get those animals moving in, deer moving into Helena or Billings or wherever, a lot of times the predators will follow them in.
Sometimes coming right up to your front porch.
We've been trying to scare the deer away because we thought that maybe that would keep the mountain lion away.
Haley Monaco, MTN News.
A Montana Tech here in Butte not only provides students with an education, but they provide them with some basic needs. Some students don't even have warm clothes to get through the winter. So they started this free clothing closet so that students can pick out what they need. In fact, I need me this. I'm flossing this one.
That's for students, newsboy.
I think it's pretty.
Oh, very pretty.
I think it would fit me. I tend to.
It's kind of taken me by surprise that it's caught on like wildfire, if you will, but it's a good thing.
For Phyllis Aman, who is an international student from Africa, it is a blessing.
There's no winter in Ghana, and it's my first time, so it was very cold. And as an international student, I really needed this because it helped me, kept me warm.
Even U.S. students find themselves ill-prepared for the weather.
Just saw somebody earlier today slip on the way into a building because he was wearing Crocs, and I was like, you know, let's get some winter shoes on those feet.
Many students can't afford new clothes or are too busy with school to shop. People are encouraged to donate to the program by dropping off coats, shirts, sweaters, warm socks, and shoes at Engineering Hall, the Student Union, or the Student Success Center.
If they are clothed properly for where we live, that's one less thing that they have to worry about, right? So then they're going to be more successful students, more successful people in the community, you know, and if they see this beautiful thing that the community is doing for students, maybe they're more likely to get in and out into the community and give back.
In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
As you can see with my crazy hair and the line of cars behind me, I-90 is close by Livingston in both directions. But fortunately, these truck drivers that pull off because of the wind, they have a safe place to stay.
Right now, if you go out, everything is crazy. Look at the traffic. It's a traffic jam. It's like a parking lot.
Moti Balyan is the owner of this one-stop shop, a diner, casino, gas station, and truck stop all rolled into one. But Moti is new here, hailing from Southern California. He's only been the owner for about a month and tells me this wind is like nothing he's ever experienced.
We have a high-rise sign that is damaged by the winds. It's cracked. My canopy is also damaged by the winds. So wind is so crazy that it's damaging the structure of the gas station.
Since Moti has moved to the Windy City, he says the highway has been closed down 3 times, which can be beneficial to his business, considering this truck stop is the first available pull-off after exiting I-90 eastbound.
When there is a highway closed, we have truck stop people. They come and swing by and we let them park it.
But Tuesday, according to our chief meteorologist Mike Hurd, winds were gusting from 60 to 70 miles per hour. As you can see, Megan, Elaine, and I almost being blown away. Wind caused one semi to tip over near exit 333 in Livingston, which led to the highway being closed down. Hours later, a line of cars bumper to bumper stuck in this windy traffic. Moti tells me he's had at least 20 trucks stay in his parking lot Tuesday, and many other travelers stopping into his shop.
They are worried about their safety. They are worried about their health. So we ask them not to drive into this risky weather.
Moti says as this closure continues and for any future closures, his one-stop shop is always open and ready to help.
When they are so frustrated, they are tired. So we have nice clean restroom. We have shower. We have food. we have casino, we have C-store, and we are fortunate that we are able to serve the people.
In Livingston, Cassidy Powers, MTN News. This device right here is called an anemometer, and it tells you how fast the wind is blowing. It's currently showing me about 7-mile-per-hour winds, but did you know on Tuesday, if you were in Gardner, this thing would have read about 104-mile-per-hour winds.
You know, when you're talking 80 to 100 miles an hour, no, we were not aware that was going to hit.
You may recall Tuesday when we told you about winds in Livingston gusting up to 70 miles per hour. But did you know at the same time, north of Gardner, winds surpassed that by a landslide, knocking down more than a dozen power poles.
It can be a pretty catastrophic scene. You think about, 14 plus, they're anywhere from 40 to 60 foot tall poles that are on the ground and all that conductor and wire.
I asked FedEg how often gusty winds are able to knock over these massive electrical poles.
Thinking back, I was in Livingston for 9 years and not to that extent. We had poles go down and one or two or three here and there, but to have 14 go down in a row, it's pretty unusual.
Unusual is right, according to our meteorologist Matt Elwell.
It happens where you get those strong winds. This is an anomaly. This is like the perfect storm of how things come together, that cold air, that dense cold air rushing out.
Matt helped me understand the anomaly by making an analogy to a hurricane.
Typically, we're looking at tropical storm to category 1, maybe 2, so we're talking 74 to 100 mile an hour winds pretty consistently, and that's what we were dealing with here.
But we're in Montana, where hurricanes aren't exactly our everyday weather. So where did this wind come from?
So I'd say in simple terms, think about cold air is more dense, so it has a tendency to sink. So as it comes out of those higher elevations, that dense cold air is just gaining momentum as it goes downhill. And then we come into these narrower areas and it just continues to speed up.
Funneling into areas such as Gardner and Livingston. But although it's windy, folks still choose to live in these areas. Meaning for FedEg and his team, they have to be ready for anything.
As soon as it happens, we have our transmission engineers that get to work right away, and he worked into the night Tuesday to get that line redesigned. By Wednesday, we were transporting poles and material and ready to go.
FedEg tells me around 200 folks only lost power for a few hours Tuesday, and Northwestern's goal is to have these poles back up and running by this weekend. In Bozeman, Cassidy Powers, MTN News.
You're watching MTN Outdoors. And I'm so glad the snow is here. Stay tuned.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Montana has some big, beautiful skies, doesn't it? With low light and air pollution, this is a great place to see celestial events. With our eyes drawn upward, some people claim to see unusual happenings up there. Are we alone, or do we just need to do some research? MTN's Zach Volheim and Curtis Greveness cover both ends of our curious Montana stargazers' questions. Let's take a look.
If you've looked up at the night sky recently, you may have noticed some things that look a little unusual. You may have noticed bright, and I mean bright, balls of light in the sky. Sometimes it looks like these balls of light are flashing and might be moving around. So, what exactly is going on here?
What I like to often say to my intro students is, don't feel bad if you've ever gotten overly stimulated and excited by Venus, because often when people see Venus in the sky, they don't initially know what they're looking at, because it is so fantastically bright on some evenings.
Dr. Mark Reeser, lecturer and planetarium director at the University of Montana, explained that right now Venus is rather far away from the Earth, often seen right after sunset high in the southwestern sky. But what about some of the other bright lights?
In the east, you've got bright Jupiter, which is pretty high in the sky by sunset right now. And then you've got Sirius rising behind Orion, not right at sunset, but a little bit later.
Venus, Jupiter, and Sirius explain the bright lights, but what about when they move?
And they're basically point sources of light. So you take a little point source of light and run it through this big filter of all these atmospheric gases, and you get refraction. The second it enters a different medium than the vacuum of space, and it bends, and then you get convection currents that are also changing the density of what it's passing through, and you just get various distortions from our atmosphere.
Take a look at this light in the sky, caught by one of our staff members. Focus directly on the light and try not to look away from it. keep looking at it, and
just over the course of a few moments, if you just watch long enough, your brain tends to create motion that's not there, and it throws people off often. They're convinced that something's moving when it's not.
if you saw it move, you're not alone.
And that's why probably fighter pilots have engaged Venus in aerial combat before.
So if you're looking up the night sky and see some things that make you question if it's really a star, don't fret and know you're not alone in being duped. In Missoula, I'm Zach Volheim, MTN News.
The planets are aligned. 6 planets, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Venus, and Saturn, can be seen in the night sky. You'll need binoculars or a telescope to see Neptune and Uranus, but they're out there too. Because the planets in our solar system orbit the sun on a flat plane, they always appear somewhere along a line. What is rare is 4 planets visible to the naked eye and 2 more possibly seen with visual aid. You could also count Earth if you just look down. The easiest planets to see might be Venus and Saturn in the southwest sky after dark. Venus is the brightest, and you can find Saturn just below Venus for the first couple of hours in the evening. Just the other night, a string of Starlink satellites passed the planets as well. Neptune is clustered close to Venus, to the south and slightly above Venus. You'll need a telescope or high-powered binoculars, and it will appear like a star. These planets will set before midnight. Jupiter is bright and overhead, north of the constellation Orion. Uranus is west of Jupiter and impossible to see without a telescope or high-powered binoculars. And finally, Mars rises late in the evening in the eastern sky. Its reddish color makes it easily identifiable. Mars sets in the western sky just before sunrise. Later on in February, 7 planets will align. The last time that happened was April 8th of last year during the total solar eclipse. And now you're a little more weather-wise.
Would you believe it? 2025 is going so fast. Before you know it, you'll be getting your last day in a Great Divide and decide you don't need to wear a jacket. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Cold is on the way. Stay warm, guys. For MTN Outdoors, I'm Keith Grevenitz. Come explore with me next week.